All right, welcome back to Sports Nightly here on the Huskers Radio Network. Kyle Crooks now joined by a very, very special guest, somebody who's getting set to go into the Nebraska Athletics Hall of Fame here this fall. And I can run down his resume, part of one of the most successful stints in college football history, and that is Aaron Taylor, who joins us now. And Aaron, thanks so much for joining us and getting a chance to celebrate you and celebrate your accomplishments going into the Nebraska Athletics Hall of Fame. What does that mean to you?
Oh man, well, first off, thank you for having me. I appreciate that, and welcome to Nebraska.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First interview, by the way,
So,
Aaron. So for me.
oh, is it really? Well,
Yeah.
let's get you broke in good, right? So what does it mean to me? Much like you, I'm a transplant, right? I'm a transplant here to Nebraska, and coming from Texas, and wasn't quite sure what my story was going to be back in 1993 when I made my way up here. You know, it's an honor. It's quite an honor to have, and so I've been inducted into the. When you win big honors, such as a Heisman or the Allen Trophy, like myself, Lombardi, you get inducted right away into the Football Hall of Fame. And then in 2018, it was the College Football Hall of Fame, which was an awesome deal for me, and really told me how much Nebraska means um, on not just in the state, but just around the country. And so those were some great honors to have, and very excited about it. But when this came about, and I got the phone call for the Hall of Fame here for the athletic department, and it kind of sunk in a little bit different because it's all sports, right? And it's I kind of had to look back of what all it encompassed at the university. It's quite the honor. I love the fact that I'm going in with gymnast, volleyball player, uh, um, bowler. So it's really a great honor for me. I'm pretty darn excited about it, and um, yeah, it's just another thing I guess you can add to the bottom of the list, but it really makes me proud coming from Texas and saying, man, it all just kind of worked out, and um, yeah, I couldn't be more proud of my university, of what I was able to do, my teams, my teammates. So yeah, pretty excited about the whole thing.
And you think of some of the things that you accomplished, and it's a long list. You mentioned the Outland Trophy going into the College Football Hall of Fame in 2018, but the national championships, like we mentioned, part of the most successful period of time of any college football team in the 90s, and then being a two-time first-team All-American at two different positions, the only football player here that has ever done that at guard and at center. When you think back to those seasons in the 90s with Coach Osborne and your teammates, what stands out in terms of the DNA or the common link between all of those national championship teams?
Yeah, that's a good question. For me personally, I was going back to 1993. I wasn't quite sure I was going to be able to make the team, right? I mean, I was a scholarship athlete, but it was a tough transition for me, and uh, through a lot of hard work, through some great coaching with Milt Tenniper, my offensive line coach. Dan Young was our offensive line coach too, and then of course led by Coach Osborne. And you know, you asked kind of what the commonality was between those years in the '90s, and I would have to say a lot of it is the coaching, right? The coaching, and the type of coaches we had that didn't just care about us, going out and dominating somebody on the field, but there were many times, many times after practice that, Coach Osborne would ask you to run a lap with them, and he'd ask about your mom and your dad and your sister and just your family. And he knew them all, whether you were a starter like I was, or you were a third string backup. He knew everybody, and he knew everybody's family, and so that's what he really developed was just a core family feel with the team, and that's something I'll take. It's I remember the national championships. They were great. I remember all of the conference championships. But man, what I remember the most is the family atmosphere we had in the locker room, we had in the coaches' meetings, and yeah, it was great. The players, not only that, right? So I mentioned the coaches, but we had a great group of players. They recruited right there in the early mid '90s. They recruited some high character guys that could play some football, and that's what we did. And so, yeah, a lot of great fond memories. There's many more I could mention, but coaches, players, family feel, and great athletes.
Chatting with soon to be Nebraska Athletics Hall of Famer Aaron Taylor here on Sports Nightly. And we mentioned the adjustment that you had made between positions. So you started out at guard and you moved to center in that 96 season. The amount of sacrifice that it took for you, somebody who was already an All-American and now moving to a different position. What did it take to make that adjustment? I assume at that point everybody's all in for the team.
Yeah, Kyle, and unfortunately, you probably don't remember it, and you probably won't see much of it in the coming years. But we ran the option, right? And the option was such a fun offense, and a lot of it was based upon what the defense gave you. And Chip Kelly kind of runs that same scheme now, right? It's you call a play in the huddle or from the sidelines, and you get up the line of scrimmage, and you switch that around. Um, and based upon what the defense is giving you. So it's a great offense. Why do I bring that up? Is because I was a guard, right? Whenever you're a guard in the option offense, you're leading the play. You know, um, I don't know, 60% of the time. And so you're out front and you're pulling, you're out in open space, you're getting linebackers, you're getting defensive backs and defensive ends. And so you're kind of the focal point of the offensive line. And so uh, as I came through my redshirt freshman and freshman year playing guard, I really started to get a knack for it and started to understand it. And then we go, obviously my sophomore year too. Um, well, then we didn't quite have anybody ready. We had Josh Heskey from Oklahoma that tore out a knee, and so Coach Tennifer asked me if I'd move over to center, and I decided to take that move, and obviously to help out the team. It's a whole different role in that option offense, and you're more of a helper. You don't lead the plays near as much on counter sweeps, counter traps, option plays. Whether it's a wide or short, quick option. You're not leading the play, and so it was a little bit of an adjustment for me, but it worked out well. I had some great mentors in Aaron Graham, who was a great player for us, and so took over for him and took that back, and then we had Josh Heskey that became ready, was recovered, and of course I couldn't wait to get back to guard. So. Um, that's kind of the way that played out. Now I'm glad I made that move. It was good. It was helpful for the team, and it helped develop me as a player.
Take me to the practices in the 90s, right? When you guys are in your heyday and nobody is really being able to come out successful against those Nebraska teams. I mean, you never lost a conference game when you were here. I believe your record was 49-2 when you played here at Nebraska. But that all starts in the practice field, right? That all starts with the culture that is created before you ever play on a Saturday. What were those practices like and the competition and the physicality that you had in those practices?
Yeah, that's a good question. In the '90s, there the practices were rough. They were worse than the game. And a lot of that was the way Coach Osborne and the coaches set up practice. We saw a lot of one versus one action on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then we kind of tame it down and have more mental day on Thursday, Friday. But whenever I say one on ones, we would run 25, 30 plays against good versus good, and so that was good. It got us ready. Whenever you're taking 25 to 30 snaps. a Tuesday and also on a Wednesday versus the one defense with the likes of Grant Wistrom, of Jason Peter, Christian Peter, um, all the great linebackers, all the great, the Kelsey brothers, all of those guys that we played with. By the time you got to Saturday, things were, um, we didn't have as much competition on Saturday as we did during the week. So it was a nice little ramp up to Saturday by having those tough practices. And not only was it just the one versus ones, but on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and even Thursdays, we'd run 125 to 130 plays just on offense. So repetition was key, and it helped out with your mental focus. And so you also didn't see a whole lot of mistakes. You didn't see a whole lot of jumping off sides or alignment errors by the receivers, the tight ends, or backs. So yeah, it was very intense, but it prepped us up for Saturday.
Aaron, what advice would you give current or future Huskers now that want to be in your shoes, right? Want to be one of the best to ever put on the uniform, want to be in the Athletics Hall of Fame, maybe want to be in the College Football Hall of Fame, of all the accolades that you were able to achieve. What is your advice to that player that is in a uniform now or might be in the years to come?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say as an offensive lineman, my advice would be you have to make sure that all five of you guys, from tackle to tackle, are family. And so you eat at the training table together, you go lift weights together, you go um, do things outside of school together, and you're basically really tight. It's a brotherhood, and that's the way we were. A lot of times it was. A lot of times I didn't know what I was doing, and I would have to turn to Chris Dishman or Fred Pollock or Aaron Graham and say, "Hey, what do I have on this play?" And they were there to bail me out. And then as I got older, I did the same thing. And so not only was it that, but then you also didn't want to let down your fellow player and your fellow teammate. And so, for me, it was make sure you're a brotherhood because um, you're not gonna succeed and be singled out if you're just a solo player, if you're just by yourself, right? The great ones will always work within a team, and then things tend to flourish, right? So to me, it's always be that teammate. Always put the team ahead of you. Anytime you start putting yourself ahead of the team, then that makes it difficult. And then I'd say my last thing, because this was drilled in me in 93, 94, 95, go be nasty. When you get on the field, go be nasty. And that was Coach Young and that was Coach Tennifer drilling that in us all the time, right? You can be what you want to be off the field, but once you step onto that field, go be nasty.
And I feel like you still have that in you. I feel like you could still suit up on a Saturday and be a first team All American. You even still have the offensive line beard
Yeah.
going.
Kyle, I just turned 50. I don't feel like it, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like I could still suit up and go, hey, I could go two or three plays, right? That's not the case, right? I'd get in a stance and probably blow a hamstring, but it's fun to think. It's fun to think about.
Well, Husker greatness indeed, and we can't wait, Aaron, to celebrate you coming up this fall as one of the newest members of the Nebraska Athletics Hall of Fame, and we can't thank you enough for your time with us here on Sports Nightly.
Absolutely, Kyle. Thank you so much. I appreciate everything.